So, Niall, do we even have regrets in life?
Yeah, and I suppose that's open to each and every person. So in advance, I just quickly looked up what regret is, or the definition of regret. And seemingly, regret is a verb that means to feel sad or sorry about something that you did or did not do. Now, for me, it's also something I might have previously felt sad or sorry about, but that I have changed something or corrected something or improved something or learned from something, so I no longer feel sad or sorry. So I think when we talk about regret here, it doesn't necessarily need to be a regret in the present moment, which I suppose in a technical sense means that it's no longer a regret. So I suppose the first question, lads, is do we have regrets? Are regrets negative? Are they always negative? You know, what do we feel about that? So yourself, Mike, what do you think about regrets?
Do you know, before this week, anyone asked me had I any regrets? You know, I'd have things like small things like, I wish I had travelled when I was younger more, that sort of stuff. I was kind of looking back on it, I was kind of going, but if I had done that, if I regretted doing that, say, let's say, come out of college and I decided I'm going off backpacking for 2 years around God knows where, would I have moved to Limerick? Would I have met my now wife? So would I have had other regrets? So maybe the thing that I regret isn't really a regret because I'd regret it if I hadn't done it.
Yeah.
Or if I had done it. But it's a bit deep, I know. I actually saw an interesting quote there that there's no regrets in life, just lessons. And okay, I suppose I'm somebody who subscribes to the what's meant for you won't pass you out as well. But I think, I regret stupid things like shouldn't have sold my motorbike 20 years ago, and maybe I'll change that in the coming years.
You can buy a new one, Mike, a better one.
Next year I'll be allowed to have a midlife crisis, will I?
Okay.
So
when we see you, we know when we see you with the motorbike, Mike, we know what's taking place. Yeah.
Like we all have things, I presume we all have things that we regret, like, maybe I shouldn't have said something I said to somebody in the heat of the moment over something. And if you hadn't had the opportunity to go back and apologize, you might feel that might hang on you for a while. I've kind of, as I said before this week, I would have said those key things, maybe I worked too hard, maybe I should have spent more time with the kids when they were smaller and now they're bigger. But they're all normal things I think that we do. If I didn't work hard, maybe you wouldn't have the lifestyle or be able to afford the lifestyle we have now. So, there's
pros and cons.
Yeah. But maybe there was a balance there somewhere that could have been achieved more, So for me, don't think I have that many regrets, really. No, nothing that's weighing me down. Biggest one at the moment is the motorbike. I think there in my late 30s, early 40s, I decided I was going to get out and get fairly fit, and I was up to a fairly good standard. Well, good standard for me of fitness. I probably have left that slip in the last 5 years or so. I just need to get back on track with that again. Because as we head into our the back nine, as we said earlier, of life, we're probably saying, what am I going to be like when I'm 65, 70? Can I still bend down and tie my shoelaces? Maybe the bit of fitness that we keep in place for the next couple of years will help us with that. So working on those things.
Shawnee, regrets, what does it mean to you, or what do you define regrets as, or do you have any? Regrets?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think anybody who says they don't have any regrets is lying, basically. I think that there's always something in life you regret doing or not doing. And I would say I have, and I think the key thing is when you do have regrets is not let the regrets control you and take over you, and that you move on as quickly as possible and you park it. Yeah, I mean, I have, and I was thinking about this. I was like, okay, I mean, they're not life-changing regrets. Like, I do regret not taking any parental leave with the kids when the kids were younger. It's something I wish I'd done, because I think it would have, a great relationship with my kids, but it would even be better. Career-wise, I regret that I didn't take more chances, and that I kind of just let myself fall into the career path because I just literally fell into it. And it just seemed to work out. And I kind of, I think when we did the work podcasts, like I mentioned, I wanted to be a sound engineer. I kind of regret that I didn't push myself to go all out for it and figure out a way of doing it. But like, as Mike says, things don't have a way of kind of working out by the choices that you make. And then there's always, I think, like I call them recurring reoccurring regrets where I might have maybe one or two many glasses of wine or beer, and then you wake up the next morning and, oh, fuck, I do regret saying that, if I can remember what I've said.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, they're the kind of type of regrets that I have. But I do believe that everybody has some form of kind of regrets.
Yeah.
And yourself, Niall?
Yeah, so I would broadly agree with you. So interestingly enough, I would say that if I went back 15, 20 years ago, whatever, I suspect I would have been someone who had a lot of regret at that point in time. And again, in preparation for this kind of podcast, and to a certain extent, I have more reason than many to have regrets. But ironically, when I kind of looked at it, I don't think that I have that many regrets. For me, and again, I go back to the point, I think regrets can potentially be a very, very positive thing, provided that you learn from them or change something or do something like that. So to me, they can be very, so I think certainly in the last kind of 9 to 10 years, I think I've been able to do that. Now, with certain regrets, I would say it took me a long time to learn from the regret and put into practice whatever it is that I needed to put into practice. There are some exceptions to that rule. So for instance, I'm approaching 50. I'm a smoker, right? I'm constantly trying to give up cigarettes, but have I really, really tried? So for instance, that's very possibly a future regret.
Yeah.
And it could be a very significant regret because it could have a very significant consequence. So again, I intend to have another go at it for 50. I may succeed, I may fail, but even if I succeed, because I've smoked till I'm 50, so to speak, there's still potential problems in kind of all of that. So yes, absolutely, I agree with you. I think if anyone says that they don't have regrets, they're probably lying, and I think it's perfectly okay to have regrets. And I think, as I say, if you can turn it into something positive, or you can action something, or you can do something as a result, I think regrets are one of the best ways that you can learn. A theme for this podcast, as far as I'm concerned, and listening to you guys, is that we're all pretty much along the lines in terms of accepting ourselves. And I think the processing or the dealing with regrets is part of that acceptance of oneself. So to Mike's point, you could have done something differently. You didn't. You are where you are now, and you just come to terms with that, so to speak.
And we've been talking about doing the podcast for such a long time. I think we'd have regretted it if we didn't do it.
And ironically, we've been talking, but this is a kind of a chance that we took.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because, like, as Aaron had said previously, you're putting yourself out there to be knocked and people to slag you off and call you born old farts and all of that type of stuff. But, we went in and did it. So, this is something that we did. So perhaps if it was 10 or 15 years ago, again, I don't know, but, it possibly mightn't have been something that we would have done, or we would have talked about it and not done it. Whereas this time around, we talked about it and we did it,
Oddly, I was thinking about that today. I was out for a stroll earlier. And I was thinking, like, we spoke about it for a while, but we never actually did anything about it, we'll be talking about maybe future regrets a little later. But that was possible that, we didn't get this off the ground, and would we have regretted it in our 60s and 70s, like, I suppose we'll always have, no matter what anyone thinks of it, we'll always have this for ourselves, And
it was said to you before the podcast started, and I know this sounds a bit kind of left of field or a bit strange, but using this episode as the example, because you're busy and you don't have time to think about these things and so on and so forth, so I would have assumed that I had more regrets than I had. I was just walking around assuming I had more regrets than I had without really contemplating it. But because we're having to do this episode, I was then having to contemplate, well, what are my actual regrets? So ironically, the process of doing that for the podcast, to my mind, has almost like a therapeutic type of, because actually, now that I'm approaching 50, and I kind of realize, well, actually, I don't have that many regrets. That was quite a nice feeling, so to speak. But I wouldn't have ended up with that nice feeling had I not to do the little bit of research for this particular episode. So it's just a very ironic thing,
Like you said at the start, some good things come from kind of
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, cool.